Hi, we're back again for another instalment of my rock and roll and racing. In the last episode we were in Portugal and we just had a second place finish with Ivan Capelli. So basically that was the end of the European season, and we just got 2 races left, and the next one was going to be in Japan. We've got to go to Japan and then to the final race in Adelaide in Australia. Now, Leighton House were obviously owned by a Japanese company. Leighton House were a Japanese company owned by a businessman called Akira Akagi, and he wanted to put on a real big show in for the Japanese Grand Prix. The guys had been out there in 1987, and it had been a much smaller effort, but this time Akagi had spent a lot of money on PR, publicity, promotion and everything, and you know, it was going to be a big event for him and his company. So we sent all the freight out. The freight goes out on Bernie Eccleston's Fokker flights, so we take everything down to Heathrow. It all gets loaded up and then it's basically flown out to Japan. This happens with all the flyaway races. Gets taken out to Japan, and the next time we see it is in the paddock at the circuit. But we flew out a little bit earlier, 2 or 3 days earlier, because you know we'd been invited to various functions to you know, to be part of the Leighton House thing, and you know, and see what it was all about. So we landed in I'm pretty sure, I've got to sort of think about the timelines on this, but it's pretty well close enough. But we all landed at Narita Airport in Tokyo, and you know, got ourselves all sorted out for you know, get over a bit of jet lag, get over the travel and everything like that, and checked into our hotel in Tokyo. I think the following day or whatever, we were sort of doing a little bit of sightseeing and no doubt visiting 1 or 2 bars and that. But in the evening, or in the afternoon, sorry, we were invited to Mr. Akagi's office, and this was quite a ordinary sort of place. You know, a building in the middle of Tokyo, but Akagi was an extremely wealthy guy, and he got in his office a button to he owned all these cars. I mean, he got like 2 Ferrari F40s, 2 959s, 2 Lamborghinis, things like this. He seemed to buy 2 cars of everything that he got. And what he would do, he got these sort of like on a carousel thing, and he'd press a button to decide whichever car that he wanted to drive home in that evening. So he'd press a button and he'd get this Ferrari F40 or something like that. He'd come out into his garage, and he'd get into it and then drive off in the F40 into the Tokyo traffic at probably about 10 miles an hour. But you know, that's indicative of every sort of big city in the world. That's what it is with the traffic. But in the evening, we were invited to. He'd got a big country club, and this was in one of the, probably I think one of the biggest areas of green land outside of the Emperor's Palace in Tokyo, and Akagi had got this country club in there, and we were all invited along there, and you know, we've got to be on our best behaviour pretty well, as we normally were. But we got to this country club, and Mr. Akagi had got this assistant, or what, sort of like what can I call him? Not a Jobsworth. No. That's the wrong way. But anyway, this guy's name was Hiro. Not sure what his real name was, but anyway, Hiro's task was to look after Mr. Akagi, to try and develop new business for him, and he generally went around the world looking at entertainment complexes and discos and all these kind of things to try and bring all these ideas back to Mr. Akagi to put before him, to, you know, so that Akagi could create these fantastic venues for you know, discos and all that kind of thing, as they were back in the day. But we were in this country club, and as we walked in, I noticed, and I mean a few guys did, but in the reception there was this wooden glass case, and it had a violin in it. And what you did, you put a few yen in, and it was almost like a jukebox, and this violin would start playing, and it was a beautiful thing. And you know where you've seen the old piano rolls, and they work on a roll with all the dots out of the paper. Well, this thing worked as well, and it had got metal fingers which actually played all the notes of this violin. And I said to, we all sat down ready for dinner, and I said to Hiro, I said, that's a fabulous thing. I said, it's beautiful. And he said, Eddie, he said, you saw all Mr. Akagi's cars earlier? I said, yes. He says, that is worth more than all of his cars put together. He says, because that is a Stradivarius violin, and it was just a one of its kind, but it was a fantastic beautiful piece of art, and a beautiful thing to see. So anyway, we're looking at, you know, we go in, and Mr. Akagi had got some of his friends and some of his sponsors around, and we were all gathered there, you know, to have our meal, and typical Japanese style, that kind of thing. But anyway, we ordered the drinks, and I seem to remember myself and our chief mechanic, I think we polished off a litre of Jack Daniels in probably about an hour or something silly like that. It was, you know, we were thirsty chaps. But one other thing I do remember as well was Mauricio Gugelmin was with us, and he was actually sat by me, and he was sat next to one of Akagi's associates, and he was an old Japanese guy, and he got long white hair, and his name was Annibal, or the company he ran was Annibal, and they were one of the sponsors on the Leighton House car. Well, Mauricio collected watches. He got a lot of watches, but on this particular evening he got, which was, these were new at the time, bearing in mind this is 30 odd years ago, he got a Casio calculator watch, and this old gent said to Mauricio, can I look at your watch? So Mauricio took it off his wrist, and he gave the watch to this Annibal, and he said, oh, beautiful, and he put it on his wrist. He took his own watch off and put it on his wrist and said, oh, beautiful, beautiful. And he gave Mauricio the watch that he'd just taken off. So he said to Mauricio, try this watch on. So Mauricio put it on his wrist, and he said, for you. And Mauricio said, no, he said, when he's playing with his calculator watch, he says, we swap, that watch is for you. Well, the watch that he gave Mauricio was a solid gold diamond encrusted eagle, which was worth God knows what. And he'd swapped it with Mauricio for this Casio calculator watch. And I thought, that's, you know, that's one hell of a swap. But, you know, we had our meal, and then Hiro came around and he said, okay, he said, who wants to go to who wants to go to nightclub? And we all sort of put our hands up, and he says, okay, he said, four. So anyway, we all peeled off into groups of 4, and we walked out of the club, and these great big stretch limousines turned up for us, and we all piled into these limousines, and then we were taken off into the night. Bars, karaoke bars, everything. It was yeah, it was a fabulous experience.